when people think about leadership, they think about leading others, which is it's basic, and it's a basic form. That's what leadership is. But the secret to really good leadership is about your contribution to others. And one of the things that you realize is that leaders are dealing with their own, their own personal demons. They're dealing with their own foibles. They're dealing with kind of like their own personal inadequacies and doubts that inform their leadership, right? Yeah. What you find actually is that over the course of an entire career, your progression is actually largely dependent on 60% your network, 30% your personal perception, i.e. your brand, and 10% you actually do day to day, your performance. Particularly for leaders, that humility is what keeps you connected to those that you lead.
Welcome to the Takeoff Experience, where I sit down with highly driven people to talk about their journey, their failures, and their successes. If you want to take off in your career, your business, your finances, or your mindset, then this podcast is for you. This episode is sponsored by Moneyhub, a platform that allows you to see all of your current accounts in one place and also provides you with smart money management tools to help you get right with your money. Welcome back to the Takeoff. We have a very, very special guest in the building today. How are you doing today, Ayo?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad.
Yeah. Awesome. It's good to have you here today. So you was telling me that it's been a very, very busy week for you, right?
Yeah, it has. Usually when you join consultancies, and I know we'll get into what I do, usually spend a bit of time bedding in. It's not been like that for me over the last couple of months. It's been really, really hectic. Traveling for work. I've been in Europe over the last couple of weeks. So it's just been a bit crazy, but good. I'm loving it. Loving what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Loving the work. Excited. Yeah. Feeling fulfilled. So can't complain.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely very excited to hear a bit more about that. But just give us an insight. Who is Ayo?
Who is Ayo? Well, I was just an everyday guy, really. I mean, I think, in terms of what I do day to day, in terms of work, I'm about helping people. I'm about supporting people. Married.
Love that.
With a little daughter.
Love that. Congratulations.
Thank you. But yeah, I'm just a regular guy, born and raised in London. Went to Warwick University, been in consulting, led youth.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot.
So yeah, I'm just a regular guy that just likes supporting and likes helping people. I'm not, I wouldn't say that there's kind of any crazy story to kind of who I am and what I'm about. I just love people and I love supporting and helping out people.
Wow.
Hence why I wanted to
Yeah. I know. You jumped on straight. Okay, let's take it back a bit because it's always good to find out the story behind the person. So, so you said that you were born in London.
Yeah.
Was it? You were born in London. Okay.
Yeah.
Parents?
Yeah. So born to my parents. My parents came over in the 80s.
Okay.
As most Africans did come to the UK as students. I was kind of caught up in that, born in the late 80s. They kind of obviously made sure they worked hard to support me and my younger siblings. So one brother, one sister. Grew up in London, inner city London, in northwest London, in Harlesden.
Wow, that's a rough area.
Yeah. So I grew up, but my parents worked really hard.
Okay.
And then went into the care business, started up nursing homes, and then went from growing up in Harlesden to going to boarding school in Worcestershire. So
man, that's mad.
Complete 180 kind of in terms of the vibe and the feel. But it was great for me. Spent 7 years from 11 to 18 in boarding school. Had an amazing experience. And then ended up in Warwick. So spent 3 years doing my undergraduate in Warwick. And like my boarding school, very international, very cosmopolitan, meant that exposed to different cultures, different people, which I loved. I thrived in that kind of environment.
Quick question actually about boarding school.
Yeah.
How did you do public school at any point before boarding school? Or did you just go straight into?
No, so literally straight into the boarding school arena from 11. And it was, I mean, most people hear boarding school and think, it was one of the most amazing experiences I've had. Yeah.
Wow.
Really good boarding school, really good family life, really good opportunities, really good life education, as well as the regular education as well. So I had an amazing time. I think in many ways, the rounded person that I believe myself to be is as a result of having been exposed to different cultures, different environments, from going to school like that. So,
wow. Why do you think you thrived in that environment? Because not everybody would, but why do you think you thrived?
I think it's just my natural personality. I think I'm quite outgoing. I'm quite extroverted. I like people. So I vibe with people in general. So I think I was always going to kind of enjoy that kind of environment, living in a boarding house of 50 guys.
50 guys, that's mad.
Or even more, actually.
Actually, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. You bring me back to my time of doing that for a bit, yeah.
So did you not like your boarding school experience?
No, it's not that. I did it for a year. So I have both experiences, but I did it in Nigeria. I never done it here.
Okay. So that's why.
That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
That's why when people hear what was boarding school like and they think of it in that context, they went to Nigerian boarding school where it was strict. No, it wasn't. It wasn't like that. No, it wasn't like that at all. But it was a really, really, really good experience. And I really got to vibe and engage. And many of my friends from school are still people that I'm engaging with till this day. 20 years, at least 20 years later. Wow. So over 20 years later. So for me, it was just a life-affirming experience, if anything, an experience that has added to me as a person, more than anything else. Yeah, I was actually up there 2 weeks ago. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What, as a reunion?
I'm a school governor.
The school governor for your school?
For my
school.
So,
man. Yeah, I like it.
So I was up there, 2 weeks ago for a trustees meeting. Yeah. So I'm still very much involved in school life up there as well. So very much an integral part of my life.
That's epic. That is so epic. It's great to hear that. You're probably the first person I've spoken to actually on the podcast that said that they've been to boarding school. So I definitely got a few more questions about it. Like in terms of like studying and did you have to study like more subjects? And I guess it's hard for you to know against public, but like
I mean I don't know. I'd say that certainly obviously the state system is slightly different to the state system. I'd definitely say that, but I think it's not just about the kind of curricular education. I think it was the extracurricular stuff that we did as well. We were exposed to all sorts, like whether it was music, whether it was drama, whether it was the arts. Whatever it is that you wanted to do, you could pursue it, right? And it was just all kind of part of that kind of full educational package. So it was just a great educational experience for me, being able to experiment in music. Acted in plays, did all sorts of stuff. Right. So so it was a really good experience.
Wow. And in terms of, were you a straight A student? Not straight A. I
think I was all rounder.
Okay.
So I got scholarship. I got a what did I get? I got a music scholarship.
Oh wow.
I got a sports scholarship.
Wow.
I got what was called kind of the Malvernian Award, so the school I went to, but it was kind of like an all round award for people who kind of thought I did well in everything. So did all right.
Okay.
All right.
You did all right.
Did all right.
That sounds good. Okay. All right. Wow. This is epic. And so college, you went to college, and then you said that you went to university, Warwick. What did you study at Warwick?
Studied politics and history.
Okay, interesting. Politics and history. Why those subjects?
Just loved them. I think from quite late on in my secondary education, college education, I realized that whatever I wanted to do would take care of itself. And I was advised as such that whatever I wanted to do would take care of itself. Choose something that you're passionate about. Choose something where the kind of desire to learn is strong and will sustain you through those kind of highs and lows of uni, or those times where you're not at your most focused. Because as you probably know, there are times where you won't be that focused, and you need to kind of have that natural affinity and that natural love for the subject. So for me, I chose politics and history because I was really passionate about it. I really loved it. I really loved the topics.
Wow. And then grades wise,
did all right. 2-1.
Okay. Wow, that's epic.
Played a lot though. I can't lie.
I mean, it happens in uni, right?
It happens a lot. Played a lot. I mean, so uni was again a great experience. I kind of treated it like a kind of continuum from boarding school. So got involved in everything. Got involved in drama. Got involved in fashion shows and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Played first team football. So I kind of got involved in
a lot of stuff.
And a lot of stuff across the 3 years that I was there. Had a really fulfilled time. So for me, again, kind of being in an environment, young people, 20,000 odd students, perfect environment for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of had friends from different enclaves or different kind of like ecosystems, communities within the uni.
Yeah.
My football guys, like, people from the ACS, people from drama and plays that acted in, like, all over the place. Different friends. So it was a great experience.
Wow. I can tell already from your story that you like to get involved in a lot of things. And it's sounding like from like you took that from your boarding school up until, into uni, getting involved, and you're not just, you just get involved, you're really good. You actually
I contribute. I want to contribute to communities that I find myself in. I think, and we're obviously going to be talking a bit about leadership in the course of this. I think for me,
sorry,
no, it's so good.
The Apple Watch, guys.
It's so good. So we were talking about leadership, and I really do think that when people think about leadership, they think about leading others. But actually, or think about authority or influence over others, which is it's basic. And it's a basic form. That's what leadership is. But the secret to really good leadership is about your contribution to others. And so for me, that's kind of something that's been a kind of concurrent strain through my experiences. How can I contribute to others' lives? How can I, whether it's through kind of like basic fellowship, whether it's through support, whether it's through counsel, and whether it's through community building and doing my part to build a community, that's kind of been something that's kind of run concurrently through my experiences, whether at school, uni, or at work.
And we're going to find out that you've been involved in a lot of community building. Which we'll touch on. So you did uni, and then in terms of like first jobs, was it like graduate scheme after?
So literally
uni?
From uni actually a couple years at law school.
Law school.
So I went to law school. But I'd kind of describe those 2 years at law school as I wouldn't necessarily say a blip, but a period of discovery. I would say. I'd come out of uni, I wasn't necessarily too sure about what I wanted to do. And kind of just follow, your parents are like, he's either a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And obviously, by virtue of my degree, I couldn't do the doctor engineer one. So in a way, I think maybe not kind of having the foresight to think about what I wanted to do whilst I was in uni meant that I kind of got into third year, a bit flat-footed, a bit unsure of what I wanted to do, and kind of plumped for law. But it became quite apparent during the course of those 2 years that, law wasn't going to be for me. And so kind of had a proper think about what I wanted to do, and probably did the work that I should have done in my second and final years uni, kind of figuring out what I really wanted to do, and landed in consulting, and landed in kind of a career where I saw that I could bring best to myself and kind of bring that natural kind of flair for the commercial to bear in a kind of corporate context. So that's kind of for me how I got into consulting. Around 2021, 22, I think.
Okay. You know what? The uni thing is so interesting. I think, it's interesting because you study a subject that you think you like, and then when it comes to the job part, I think quite a few people don't really go down what they study. Because I studied law and I didn't go into law. I didn't like.
Yeah, I mean, I think what a lot of people need to realize is that with your degree and how you translate that into the work context isn't about, being able to say, right, I want to be a lawyer, so I study law, or I want to go into engineering, so I want to be an engineer, so I study engineering. It's about understanding the art of learning, being able to apply that practically, being able to show to any kind of prospective employer that you have, been able to assimilate knowledge and be able to kind of present it out in a way that, convinces them of your ability to do that in a kind of practical sense in a work environment. And obviously, the supporting evidence of that would be work experience and all those other things that used to kind of build your profile and build a CV that makes you an attractive proposition to whichever employer is. But, for me, I felt that my degree, although unrelated to consulting, was actually quite good because it was able to kind of demonstrate that I was able to kind of present ideas, kind of present concepts, which when you think about it, when I come into the world of consulting, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to sell ideas to people.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you kind of are able to make those connections with what you've learned and how you apply it within that space, that's how you attract your employees. That's how you present a convincing case to your employers. Well, I said employers, future employers as well.
Okay. Wow. I love that. So, okay, so you consulting. What was the first consulting company that you...
So I was at I've literally...
Okay.
KPMG.
Oh, really?
So I came on to KPMG,
Okay.
Graduate scheme.
Okay.
And started off in kind of tech consulting within financial services.
Okay, tech consult. Okay.
And so I spent a couple of years doing that, but that didn't quite hit the spot. I was like, so this is great, working for big financial service organizations, supporting them in big tech transformation projects. This isn't really what I want to do, but I'll, do it, finish off my my undergraduate scheme, get what I need to get out of it. And then because of my experience in law school, I knew that I had really sound knowledge of the, regulatory environment within banking. So was able to, after my undergraduate scheme, make a kind of move laterally into banking regulatory team. And then after that, made my move into people consulting, which is kind of what really exposed me to the world of HR consultancy, the world of workforce transformation, diversity and inclusion consulting, and leadership strategy, which is where I'm in now. So that kind of move across into HR consulting is what kind of opened the door for me to make the moves that I eventually took me to a place where I'm like, this is where I want to be at. Okay.
What drew you there? What about it was like, this is it for me. This is what I want to do.
So I think for me, like people is my passion, right? So, being able to support, organizationally or individually, the progression or development of people became kind of like my thing. And it was interesting. I was working on a conduct assignment with my banking reg team, and we were working alongside the people and change team. We were doing kind of like the remediation stuff. It was kind of a series of underwriting breaches for this insurance company, and we were doing the remedial stuff. And the people and change guys, their team was dealing with like the really cool stuff, which is what's the underlying culture that's driving all of these kind of breaches. Why are people kind of what cultures kind of forcing people to make these decisions? And I was like, this is really interesting. I want to do this stuff, right? So kind of a few conversations later, I was exposed to the right people in that team and was able to, over a few months, wangle my way into that team and didn't look back, and was able to kind of get more and more involved in, the different proposition areas across people consulting. And then that led into kind of D&I work, and that kind of coincided with work that I was doing with the African and Caribbean Network, where I was chair of the network, co-chair of the network at KPMG. So it was it all kind of coalesced at the right time that my extracurricular at work was kind of combining with the kind of day-to-day that I was doing as well. So it just all kind of made sense and all kind of came together at the right time.
Wow. A question I had for you. So did you have to have conversations with people to get yourself into it? Because a lot of people, when they're, they want to transition into another role, or, I want to go from this role to this, or I want to maybe move to this department. Sometimes they don't know how to go about it. What did you do in that situation?
There's one thing that I've learned, and I've found it to be so true in my career, which is that when you think about your career and you divide it into the three, if you divide it into the following three areas, so your performance, your brand, and your network, over the course of an entire career, let's say that's kind of all comprises a pie. What would your division for each of those be in terms of what's the most important? If you ask anyone that question, most of them will say, well, I've got to do the work really well. And so they'll probably say, 60% for performance, how people perceive me and my personal brand, 30%, and then 10% for my network. What you find actually is that over the course of an entire career, your progression is actually largely dependent on 60% your network, 30% your personal perception, i.e. your brand, and 10% you actually do day to day, your performance. And so for me, it's just been about networking. For me, the most important thing, when I think about all the big career breaks that I've had over the last 10 years, they've all boiled down to the right conversations with the right people.
Wow.
That's what it's boiled down to. And so in response to your question, it's just about conversation. It's about conversation. It's about, projecting your interest, showing those who are stakeholders potentially, what you're about, building relationships with them, building trust and rapport with them, and then using that to obviously negotiate your way through the different hoops that every organization has, right? And it's a reciprocal relationship, of course. It's not just a case of, networking in a non-authentic way because you're looking for something, because people see through that, and that lack of authenticity doesn't serve you well. But it is about, of course, creating relationships, mutually beneficial relationships, to support others and also support your own development going forward. And that's basically been my approach all throughout.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And that helped you become a senior manager at KPMG?
So that took me all the way. That took me all the way to senior manager.
So you went literally from a graduate at KPMG to senior manager for one of the biggest accounts. I mean, big four. Basically. In the world, which is an incredible achievement. And a lot of people look to you. I'm sure you get so many questions on your LinkedIn all the time. Like,
I get loads of people reach out. And to be fair, again, this is part of the kind of leadership support aspect of things, is that if you're climbing a ladder, you don't just draw the ladder up once you get to a certain space. It's also about supporting others. So there have been plenty of times where we've had people saying, I'm applying for a manager, senior manager role at KPMG. What should I be looking out for? What should I be looking? What are the key competencies that are required? And I'll happily give 5-10 minutes of my time to kind of talk them through it, because that's part and parcel of your journeys, that you can help inform and support other people's journeys as well. But definitely, people would ask and reach out and be like, how did you manage to do this? What did you say? Who are the people that you've kind of related to in order to, and you give them your steer, you give them your journey. Of course, in an organization that's that big, a 2.5 billion pound organization, 16,000 employees, or however many it is, there are so many different routes, there's so many different paths that people tread. But all you can do within your sphere of influence is just give your story and kind of allow people to kind of see through your story how you've been able to do it, and take your lens of wisdom and, apply that where it's applicable to them.
Okay, let's go through it briefly. Okay, so you started at the organization, right? KPMG, and I think from memory it's 3 years grad. Was it 3 years when you started that?
So mine was I got promoted at 3 years.
Okay, 3 years. And in that time, what were you doing that got you to be seen?
So in that time, actually, to be fair, I was actually focusing mostly on my day to day, and actually the promotion that comes from analyst, associate to assistant manager is kind of baked into your graduate program, isn't it? So that one isn't too much. You just obviously have to focus on kind of like delivering day to day and kind of gaining that experience. I would say that the promotion from manager to senior manager, as opposed to from assistant manager to manager, is probably the one that's quite difficult, because obviously that's where the pyramid is starting to kind of really kind of, tighten at the top, and you're having to kind of compete against others in order to kind of get to that space and get to that position. And that, for me, actually was more about having the right advocates and sponsors.
What's a sponsor? For people that don't know,
here's I think where people fall down when ascending the corporate ladder. When you think about your employee experience end to end in any organization, you can have someone who's going to be a mentor. And what a mentor does is, and I'm getting to sponsor in a sec, but what a mentor does is, what a mentor provides that kind of technical expertise for you to be able to lean on over a long period of time. You can have where you identify a development need, someone who coaches you, and what they do is they provide targeted assistance and targeted coaching or help in that space. What a sponsor does is somebody who's going to be the advocate for you when you're not in the room. So when you think about your career at any organization, you will have a performance cycle that you'll get appraised on. You'll have, depending on the organization, potentially a bonus. Depending on the organization, you'll have work that you're allocated to. All of these things are dependent on who in the other room, when the decisions are being made, says your name and puts your name forward. If you don't have somebody that's basically shouting from the rooftops for you from an advocacy perspective in terms of, your performance appraisal, you get the low performance rating. When you get the low performance rating, you get the low bonus. When you get the low bonus, it means that you're not able to your salary, your earnings, are affected. You don't get the you don't get the right work, which means it's much more difficult to get the experience that you need to build a case for promotion.
Yeah.
So pretty much every aspect of your employee life cycle is touched by the ability or inability to secure the right advocates and sponsors for yourself in the room.
Yeah.
And so I think the higher you get, obviously, the more important it is to have someone in the room that says, I know Atto. Yes, I know Ayo. Let this guy through. He's really good. I can vouch for him. And I think that for me, particularly in that jump from manager to senior manager, it was more about having the right people saying, we support Ayo for this job. We support Ayo for this role. Really, really important. And people don't understand that. People think, keep my head down, work hard, and everything will be all right. No, it doesn't work like that.
Wow. And how did you go about getting your sponsors?
Networking. Conversations.
Yeah.
Conversations. Okay. Again, I think that one of the things that we assume wrongly, particularly, and I'm speaking to people from historically underrepresented backgrounds here, so what we typically assume is that if I just keep my head down and we work, that things are going to be fine and that we'll eventually get our just rewards. But and I'm sure this, nothing within that space is ever given to us. You've got to go out and take it and grab it for yourself. And within the kind of corporate culture that's in the West, you can't just wait for someone to recognize you because
no way.
Because one, the advocates and the sponsors who are the decision makers are very time poor, and they're only going to be able to see you if you're right in front of them. And so I think that over the years I've learned to be quite straightforward and brazen about. Hi, John. I'd love some time in your calendar.
Okay. I love that.
Hi, Pete. What's your calendar like? Can I get some time with your PA to kind of just check in with you? So booking periodic check-ins with people who are really, really important stakeholders. And then you can have your mentors who you meet with periodically, who that it's easier to kind of grab time with them. But you need to be, when I move into a business or a team, I'm identifying who are the key people that I need to be scheduling regular time with. And it's no different in my situation now. Particularly as someone quite new to my organization. I'm just making sure that I speak to these guys every fortnight. You just can't you can't get away with not doing that. If you want to go far. So now in this organization that I'm in now, I joined and I haven't sat on the bench for a few months waiting for work to fall into my lap.
That's good.
It's been a case of, I've been speaking to people already, and it's been a case of, let's put them to work now. Which is where obviously you give yourself the platform to shine and excel, for them to then refer you to more work, and then that's how it generates, that momentum that, pushes you forward, drives you forward in your career.
Wow, you're very proactive, and I think this is what helps someone excel in their career. So in terms of even like gaining the sponsor, even understanding what that was, was it your mentors that helped you, or did you just figure that out yourself? You're like,
so I think it's development and learning from mentors. Learning from mentors who say to you, look, nothing that you want is going to be given to you. You've got to present a compelling case of where you want to go and identify who those people are that are going to take you on that journey to get there. And so for me, it was a learning. And I say it was a learning because actually, when I think about my promotion from assistant manager to manager and from manager to senior manager, both of those two promotions didn't come about because of what I was doing day to day. They came about because the relationships that I'd kind of cultivated over time ripened to the degree that when I'd kind of reached this stage where I was like, I want to do this, but I don't quite know how to do it. They were able to put their hand to kind of make the interventions. They were able to open the doors for me. And if I had kind of carried on trying to do it on my own, it wouldn't have worked. It just wouldn't have worked.
You always need people, and I feel like a lot of people forget that you always need help. There's no shame in saying that you need help. No
man's an island. And the reality is that, particularly in the world of consultancy, what people don't realize is that most people think that they're consulting and selling a product. what you're actually selling is yourself.
Yeah.
And internally, how you get front of line to sell those products is by selling yourself first. Yeah. So, if you don't know how to sell yourself in an effective way, then you'll never be given the opportunities. Yeah. Or let's say it's much more difficult to get those opportunities. Because when it comes to promotions, when it comes to recognition, it's only those who have those, jobs, those projects, those engagements on their roster that are those that are able to present the most compelling case for promotion, for, leadership, for whatever it is that you're looking for. Yeah. And it's just, it all boils down to who are the stakeholders and sponsors that you have.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's super, super, super important. I'm hearing this more and more. What if I told you that there was a platform that allows you to see how you're spending all of your money across all of your accounts, especially at a time where the cost of living is at its highest that it's been in years? What if I also told you that this platform also allows you to see how much income you are getting every month across all of your accounts, as well as helping you to set budgets for all of your expenses? It doesn't stop there though. This platform also helps you to send a record of your rent payments to Experian so that it is recorded on your credit report, which can help to boost your credit score. This platform sounds amazing, right? Well, this platform is called Moneyhub, which you can download for free by tapping the link in my description. You get access to premium features free for 6 months, 6 whole months with no auto renew. And then if you decide that you love the app and the platform and you want to continue with premium features, then it will only cost you £1.49 per month. That is the deal of the century, right? Well, go and download the Moneyhub app right now. I wanted to understand, so you got to your senior manager at KPMG, very, very big achievement. What was the difference for you at that point? What was it like? How did you feel as opposed to when you was assistant manager or graduate?
So I think there's certainly more responsibility. There's certainly... See, I think the way in most organizations they look at it is that when they give you a role of senior manager, they're essentially saying, can we trust this person to be a representative of this organization, right? Or can we... And there's more risk, in giving a senior manager role to someone, because with that title, you can say stuff externally that means that people will take what you're saying even more seriously. Yeah. And if you're saying the wrong thing, then you could, be in serious danger of putting that organization into disrepute, right? Yeah. So there's more of a risk. And so as a leader, you're having to, make sure that you're, putting yourself in the position to be the best kind of ambassador for the business. And, obviously you're leading more and more people. You're required to set the tone for and the culture in whatever department and team that you find yourself in. You're required to support more people. You're required to, manage more people, manage more projects, manage a wider portfolio of things. So your brief becomes a lot wider. I mean, the way it works, a lot of these organizations is that you're already kind of operating in that role before you kind of go for the promotion, right? Yeah. Because you've demonstrated, the aptitude and skill set required to make that jump up already before they officially kind of say, this is the jump up. Yeah. I'd say that, your brief is wider. You've picked up these leadership skills already, but, your brief is just being widened. And I think the other thing I'd say about leadership, the more senior you get, is that rather than being engaged in the kind of day-to-day and the more granular, you're starting to kind of look at things at a more strategic level. You're not kind of in the detail as much. You're looking at, a larger time horizon for the things that you're looking to do. You're thinking about relationships more. Remember I said at the start that it's the network that matters really. When you look at things in the longer term. So your mindset's starting to shift really in the corporate context. Really, you're not really thinking about things in the same way, and you can't in order to be able to cover the breadth that you need to cover as a more senior leader. So definitely, I think it does change. Your mindset has to change as well. Your people management has to get even better. You have to be better at having difficult conversations. You have to be more forthright. You have to trust in your expertise and your knowledge, and be able to assert that more. But obviously, in the way that doesn't break bridges, but kind of builds bridges. So your skill set becomes a lot more your skill, and obviously that's all backed up by the kind of technical understanding that you have. But your skill set becomes, I think, a lot more based on those long-term skills, because you're constantly learning about the kind of the industry expertise that informs your rise in that specific area, in that specific sector. But leadership is something that I think is it separates. You can have somebody who's really technically proficient but doesn't have the best leadership skills. And it means that at kind of like a strategic level, that organization is going to suffer if you don't have a better leader than someone who's more technical.
No, it's super important. I'm thinking, is there like a pressure that comes? Do you feel pressure?
So certainly you do. And it's interesting. I mean, we haven't gone on to kind of what I do now, but certainly, I've seen so much now that, leaders are human beings ultimately. And one of the things that you realize is that leaders are dealing with their own, their own personal demons. They're dealing with their own foibles. They're dealing with kind of like their own personal inadequacies and doubts that inform their leadership, right? The kind of insecurities that inform how they engage with others. Perceptions that inform how they see themselves. Vis-a-vis others. So I think one of the things that I've seen very, very much so is that, being able to lead yourself is actually a precursor to being able to lead others, and being able to have a handle and have a self-awareness of where your strengths and weaknesses lie, and then build around you those who complement your strengths, those who mask some of the weaknesses that you might have, or pick up some of the shortfalls that you might have to build the most effective teams around you. So certainly I think that one of the things that I've seen is that being a leader or leading teams, the more senior you get, doesn't take away from kind of like the core skill sets, the core skills that you need to have rather to lead effectively.
It sounds like there's always going to be that pressure. And going into what you do now, so you transitioned, so you decided to leave KPMG.
After over 10 years.
Over 10 years. Wow, that must have been a big
call. But I just felt that, and here's kind of where, part of understanding where you're going long-term career-wise. And I think I just understood for myself that the next move, had for me a lot of the kind of, areas that I needed to go into, wanted to go into, so whether it's kind of like in the leadership space or executive development, executive coaching space. This role very much affords me the opportunity to do that, affords me to kind of explore more leadership. Traditionally when you consult at an organizational level, where the organization needs to implement this or strategically think about that, whereas actually when you kind of consult the leaders of those organizations, you're actually approaching this from a kind of even more embryonic phase, where you're thinking about actually who are the leaders that are executing, who are the leaders that are kind of thinking through these decisions, are they being supported? So whether it's looking at kind of how they work as a team, so board effectiveness, or as an executive, whether it's kind of executive coaching, whether it's looking at kind of like how inclusive they are as leaders, whether it's looking at their assessment of their leadership credentials or developing them through coaching. That's what my organization now does. And so very much kind of taking it to the next phase of how to consult organizations, but starting with their leaders first.
That's interesting. That's a different type, actually. Well, I haven't come across many consultancies that focus on that. So
it's interesting because obviously the advent of leadership strategy is is fairly recent compared to kind of like your normal strategy and management consulting work that's out there. So we're quite niche. And actually the interesting thing about what we do in my consultancy is that we kind of are married to the kind of psychology of leadership and the psychology of organizational leadership. So my organization in a way is quite funny because we've got loads of kind of occupational psychologists who understand business, who obviously bring that to bear with all the consultancy stuff as well. So we're very much kind of focused on the leadership space, but we kind of look at it through the kind of behavioral psychological sphere as well. Very much everything that we do is kind of driven and informed by the psychology of behavior, the psychology of leadership.
And I'm guessing it must be an interesting conversation you have with them because is there like an element of them that gets defensive, or do you feel like, I guess the question I'm asking is because so now you are director, right? So it's weird that I'm saying this, but I feel like sometimes when people hear people's roles, they give like an element of respect, right? So if your director coming to them, maybe they don't feel as defensive, or do they, regardless of what it is? So it's interesting,
because I think organizations that engage us, they know what we do. Whether we're at director level or whether we're at, managing consultant or senior consultant levels, they know that they're asking us because of our expertise in the leadership behavior, in the leadership space, right? So it doesn't matter what level we're at. You can have, I've worked on engagements where I've got really, really senior board members being interviewed by people who aren't directors, and that's your title within our industry doesn't necessarily kind of doesn't necessarily kind of make it so that you can't work with certain people because of their level of seniority. Of course, in certain instances, and I've done, I was working on a project where I was organizing the interviews recently, and we had one like most senior members of the board in that interview, and I thought, well, you know what, let me pair that person up with one of our MDs just to kind of make it a peer-to-peer conversation. But I've had conversations with clients, some of whom are literally just a level removed from the board, and I'm just like, well, I've been asked to help support coaching and development of this person. My role, my title doesn't come into it. My expertise is what comes into it, So I think it depends on the industry, it depends on the sector, but if you're in a room where you've been asked to do something with someone who's quite senior, these people are human beings at the end of the day.
They are, they're all human beings, right?
So whatever the title, no matter how accomplished their CV looks, you're being asked to help in their development and identify areas where they can develop. So you just got to go in and do that. It's
interesting because I feel like a lot of people, like with roles, for me personally, I don't really care about that sort of stuff because, like you said, they're humans, right? And I feel like there's nice and bad people at any level.
Absolutely.
So I think sometimes the whole fear of senior people, I think a lot it can inhibit people from time to time. Moving on to leadership.
But so just on that point, you see, I think that point is where a lot of people might trip up if they're trying to kind of network with and create relationships with senior people, because remember I said that sponsorship from people who are senior leaders is very important in their kind of career progression and growth. If I had seen leaders as people that I'm afraid of, then I never would have been able to make the transition.
That's true.
I think for many people that are looking to, grow in their careers and develop leadership skills and leadership credentials, part of that kind of what I call an imposter syndrome is one of the big barriers that people are going to have to learn how to navigate in order to be able to, be comfort and kind of not feel like they're outside their comfort zone when they're engaging with senior people, and particularly if you have aspirations for leadership and being with senior people and engaging with senior people as well.
How do you overcome imposter syndrome?
I just trust in my abilities, trust in the fact that over the period of time that I've been in work, that I've developed a skill set, I've developed knowledge, I've developed experience that will stand me in good stead. Trusting in the innate skills that I have as well.
You have to have a confidence.
You have to have a confidence.
You have to.
That's kind of what it's been for me.
The way I always see these things, I think there's no point of, if you're going to do it, you might as well just try, right? You might as well just try. If you're going to do it, just try it. What's the point of just like, I'm going to do it half-hearted in the element that I will fail? Just do it.
No. I mean, the reality is that, the presumption that everyone knows everything, and
Yeah.
that the more senior you get, you're dealing with people who know even more.
Yeah.
It's, in some ways, a bit of a fallacy, really. And I've become very used to, dealing with leaders. And I think also helps that actually, in my experience, I've been mostly lucky with the leaders that I've come across who have shown that kind of vulnerability and shown that kind of humanity, which means that your exposure to that kind of leadership at the very top level means that you come into any kind of situation thinking, well, I've dealt with people just as senior as you, just as accomplished as you before, and haven't come out of those exchanges for the worst. So there's no reason why I should start to believe that's the case now.
No, it's super important. And in terms of leadership, what does that mean to you?
So, like I said, leadership is at its basic level, how you influence others, right? And influence of others. But I think that, the secret behind how you do so successfully lies in how you serve. How you serve others, how you look after others, how you build others. If you're a leader of a team, your team is only as strong as the weakest person. So, can you help to build and develop that person so that, your team collectively becomes greater than the sum of its parts? That's kind of mindset, the best leaders I've seen have. Leaders who, don't have a fear of, promoting and building up others. That's, for me, where I've seen really effective, really strong teams, really high, they talk about within the kind of corporate sphere, high performing teams. High performing teams for me are teams where you are not the only leader. And, the team, the test of a good leader is actually a team that can kind of continue to function and function just as well in your absence as well. And so for me, that kind of leadership is really important. Leadership that builds other leaders and kind of leadership that guarantees, the succession of your leadership. So whether it's, that if you left tomorrow for whatever reason, there'll be someone else who's going to be able to take on that mantle and lead just as effectively as you. Then that is, to me, evidence of a really good leader that you've been, because you've built someone else up. It is not about you; it's about others.
I love that definition. I love that. It's very, your definition is very people focused, which I think is important.
But you can't lead yourself. Well, you can't. If you're a leader, your influence usually extends beyond yourself, right? So if your leadership isn't others focused, then what are you doing really? So for me, I think
some people like to micromanage.
Well, some people like to micromanage, but again, I think, your leadership has to enable others to flourish. And if your micromanaging is causing others to shrink, then you've got to think about how best to reassess and revisit your leadership. So, for me, I think it's about others. It's about building up others more than anything else. And yes, it's about making decisions. And, in the same vein that I've said all of that about leadership also can be quite a lonely place when you're having to make, difficult decisions that you will be held accountable for. And I think that leadership is also about, whilst building up others, being able to, to protect your team, take one for the team as well when needed. So there's many different elements to leadership that, require you to be the kind of stand in the gap, the bridging point. And it sometimes can be a thankless task. But I do think that, the strength of your character will determine how good you do both sides of the coin. So the side of the coin that makes you the sole point of contact and sole point of accountability, but the other side of the coin that relies on you to develop others and build others up as well.
No, super important. I think leadership, like I was saying, is very, very people-centered. And in terms of challenges, what would you say has been like some of the biggest challenges in your career, and how have you overcome them?
So I think some of the biggest challenges are those kind of disappointing projects, or or really challenging people that you have to engage with. And over the course of over a decade or so, I've had my fair share of disappointing projects, things where things don't go to plan, or where I've had really, really difficult people to deal with. And I think in a lot of cases where the learning has been for me is one, to trust myself more. So in one project I remember working in, I think it was about 7 years ago, I think it was, where I knew that we were under-resourced on that project and should have probably called it out earlier, because the timelines were really, really strict, and I didn't. Just thought, let's just plow ahead, and in the end it just meant that everyone was more stressed. Those who were reporting to me more stressed, me more stressed. If I'd said, look, this isn't being resourced in the right way from the outset, and not tried to please, then that would have turned out really differently. And I think the learning from that for me, and again, it kind of goes back to this conversation about being able to kind of speak the truth to those who are more senior, not seeing people as, oh, this guy's too senior, I can't say anything to him. Now, I'd happily say, no, we need to do more, or no, there needs to be more people allocated to this in order for us to deliver the best. And it doesn't matter if the profitability for this is hit. Our word is that we said that we're going to deliver this properly. So let's put, all the relevant resource, all the required resource to this, so we can make sure that we make good on our word. So that kind of thing has happened to me before, where you've kind of navigate and learn. And I think the key thing is that you, one, learn, and two, you realize that even people at the most senior, have been through things like this. One of my mentors, really, really senior guy within the tech space, he's probably the only person who I know has been demoted before.
Wow, I've never heard.
Yeah, and he ended up being CEO of his organization. Wow. Well, one organization before moving on to another. So, someone like that, his battle scars and his stories tell me that everyone has their story to tell. Everyone has, learnings. So I think the great thing about my learnings is that there's often been an uptick, on the other side of them, so, on the other side of the setback for me is usually been a setup for the next thing, which has been great. And it's just about how much you're willing to lean into those challenges, lean into those ups and down, those downers, not ups, those downers, to kind of, gain strength from them, gain learning from them and knowledge from them, to inform your next moves and inform what you do next. Yeah,
it's inspiring. And it sounds like as well, mentors are very, a huge part of that as well, just to...
Yeah, so mental resilience. Resilience is important. Yeah. I think, one of the things that I've definitely learned about resilience is that, you can think that, in your resilience that I've been resilient for so long, and I remember when, from my manager to senior manager promotion, there was quite a long period of time. So for me, seeing others who I ostensibly thought we should be at the same level and they'd got promoted quicker, that's quite difficult to look at. But I think that where you start to develop that resilience is where you realize that actually the career rat race that everyone thinks they're on, we all have different timings, which mean that, someone else's time can come, someone else's time can come after that, and you have to just focus on your own race and your own goal. And you've asked me obviously about director, like literally, the organization that I'm in now, literally they knew that I'd been a director, senior manager for a year, but still felt, you know what, we want to promote you. So that was quite a quick turnaround between senior manager and director.
Shorter than your previous stints, which is crazy, right? Shorter
than my previous stints, the more senior I've got, right? So again, you just got to focus on your own race. So it's just about just kind of your resilience, kind of making sure that you kind of focus on your own race, focus on your own journey, and you get there in the end, right? You get to where, you get to a semblance of your destination point, but the constant growth, continuous development is just the name of the game anyway. I'd hate to be the kind of person that in 10 years gets to what is considered the top of my industry and I'm not still thinking about continuous development and continuous growth, because you can never know enough. There's always something new to learn. There's always a new area that you can grow in. So it's just about continuing to do that.
Yeah, it's super important. I think we both learned this at KFMG. Growth mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Definitely important. You know what? It's been great having you on the podcast. It's been very inspiring.
Pleasure.
I think as well, like from hearing your story as well, you know, you're humble throughout as well. You're humble throughout, and you're also handing back out and helping out people, which I think is super important.
I think you know, you speak to humility. I think you know, as a man of faith, you know, there's a lot to be said for humility, and where humility takes you. And also, I think, you know, particularly for leaders, that humility is what keeps you connected to those that you lead. You know, not seeing yourself as bigger than or more superior to those that you lead. I mean, that's really important because it keeps you tethered, it keeps you grounded. And that grounding is important. You know, I think I can never forget my story and where I'm coming from, and forget those who have been instrumental along my journey to helping me to kind of get to where I'm going to, which means that I can never for any second kind of think of myself as the it guy. It's just not going to happen. And I know, I mean, some people, and I wouldn't say that it means that I'm not a confident person, but it just means that I'm just fully cognizant of the roles others have had to play in my life. So therefore, can I be of service to others to help them get to where they're going to, number one? And number two, can I make sure that I don't lose track of where I'm coming from? Because it's informed where I've got to now. It's super important. Servant leader. Yeah, exactly. That's what super important, right? You said it. That's it. That's what it all boils down to. Servant leadership. That's what it boils down to.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's been great, and I'm sure the listeners are gonna love this. What have you got planned next for yourself?
Nothing really. I mean, for me, I think it's just a period of consolidation. I've been in role for a few months now, so just continue to consolidate and continue, as I said, continuing to grow. Like, I don't feel like I've, you know, done anything really. I feel like, you know, I'm just on my journey. You know, where I can, where my sphere of influence allows, continue to help people, continue to do what I do, and not trying to change now that I've kind of got to where someone might consider, oh, you're a director now, so what does that mean? No, it's not that. It's, you know, just continue to do what I do. We're gonna definitely see if we can get you back in a year's time and see what the journey's like at that point. For sure. No, it's been great. It's been great hearing your story. Have you got a final word for the listeners? Final word for the listeners. Yeah, I do actually, and it kind of is the concurrent theme throughout this entire pod, which is just to serve others. Kind of think about how you can be of use and service to others. You know, I think we live in a generation, in an age where, you know, it's kind of pursuit of self and self-aggrandizement, self-promotion, self-growth. But actually, the secret to your progression, your promotion, your expansion usually lies in how you serve and how you are with others. Particularly as a leader as well. Would be my one message to those of you that are listening out there. Powerful. And you know, that's the theme of the leadership. Listeners, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Very inspiring story from Io. It's been great having you, and I really appreciate you being here. Listeners, we'll see you on the next week of the Takeoff Podcast. See you next week.